Hello and welcome to another evening of frank conversation. This is Hard Copy, and I am Terry Ikumi. The aftermath of the NSAS protest still remains a major topic of conversations across Nigeria, mainly because of the government's handling of the matter. Now, while the president has asked youths for time to implement changes calling for dialogue, and judicial panels have been sitting across the country, the government's actions have continued to raise concerns and possibly propagate more anger among the people, with the arrest of protesters, freezing of accounts, and seizure of passports, as well as deregistration of businesses which supported the NSAS protests. Now, many question if this is the best move of the government in trying to prevent a repeat of the escalation. But the question is the government really trying to prevent a repeat of the escalation, or trying to suppress voices and prevent another round of protests, no matter how peaceful as permitted by law? Well, tonight on Hard Copy, let's look at the effects of the latest actions of government. My guest is a senior advocate of Nigeria, Ahmed Raji. Welcome to Hard Copy.
Thank you very much.
And it's good to see you again.
Thank you.
I recall that we've had this conversation before, and interestingly, we're still speaking about how government is handling things like this. Now, what do you make of the NSAS protests so far and government's response to it? Or if we take it away from just government, look at the political class in general.
Well, my understanding of NSAS is that it's a wake-up call for all the leaders at all levels. Because the way and manner it was organized, some facts, some issues touching on governance, critical issues touching on governance were being raised. And if the government is not careful at all levels, it may lead to what happened in other climates, where the government is just thrown under the trailer and they are gone forever. So there is the need for the government to be very, very careful in the way and manner issues touching on the youth, particularly educated ones.
But from what you see now, is the government being careful? I mean, there have been recent developments that have raised questions. You know, their accounts have been frozen, protesters have been arrested, passports seized. Is the government being careful? Is the government going about it the right way?
I do not think so. And the reason why I'm saying this is this. But with a caveat. The NSAS protesters made some points. And the government said, oh, we agreed and we're going to implement A, B, C, D. For the same government to turn around, and then they went ahead and said, look, they knew, and they still know, that NSAS protesters were not the hoodlums who destroyed and vandalized. It was hijacked by the wrong people, and they went and looted, because NSAS protesters were there for almost 10 days. There was no damage, no violence, nothing. But all of a sudden, this, and that's why they say you can start a protest, you never can know the end of it. So it was hijacked, and then the unfortunate occurrences happened. But the same government haven't listened and haven't encouraged setting up a panel and haven't implemented some of the suggestions. I do not think it's tidy to just immediately turn around and start picking and arresting.
I think for many people, it's beyond even just speaking and arresting. Is it in line with the law? Some of these all these arrests and actions of governments, from like seizing of passports, these are not legal processes, are they?
Well, accounts can be frozen, but you must make a case for it. Passports can be taken
Seized,
from you. You must make a case for it. And that is why, if you look at the last order by the Federal Court here, the judge was careful. He said, anybody who is affected is at liberty to come and vacate this order. For example, I do not know the reasons or what they put in their affidavit to justify the making of the order. It's been speculated that terrorism was alleged. If indeed it is true that terrorism is alleged, this may be a basis to freeze the account. And for whoever feels aggrieved and displeased with the order and has reasons to exculpate, to explain himself, he can go and apply to the judge to vacate.
From a legal standpoint, is that really what it should be? Because I hear the Nigerian Bar Association has said that the pretext of terrorism was totally out of place. Even a senior advocate of Nigeria like yourself, Michael Zekome, has described that process, tagging NSAS protesters as terrorists, as unlawful.
Well, to some extent they are right. To some extent, they are right. But once an order of court is obtained, the next thing for you is to go there and seek to discharge it. Even the legality of the order will have to be contested before that judge. You don't sit where you are and begin to say, oh, the order is unlawful, the order is illegal. You need to place materials before the court that made the order so that the court can now be persuaded and then vacate the order.
But then some people have also questioned why it is the CBN that has gone to get this order. Some say that expectedly it should have been the anti-graft agencies, all the security agencies. Why the CBN? Do you fault the CBN in this one?
Well, because it is a regulatory agency that has to do with monetary affairs. And here they are talking of use of money to fund terrorism. And the CBN has the supervisory control over the banks. And it wants to give directives that, look, stop this, don't do this. Perhaps that was what informed CBN.
Before investigation?
Well, they said to further hate investigation. This is what they said. They've not said they have appropriated the money. They just say, on the interim, this account be frozen, pending investigation.
I'm not a lawyer, but I'm trying to understand the process. I would like to think that investigation comes first before actions are carried out. So I would like to think that possibly the security agencies, even the CBN, will present facts before the judge to say for further. I don't know what kind of investigations have been done in the background before that assumption or conclusion of terrorism was reached, on which pretext the court order was obtained.
I do not have the facts in the affidavit, but what I guess might have happened is they have presented some evidence, suggestive, something establishing some links, and then to now aid the investigation, please stop further activities on this account, otherwise it may prejudice our investigation. And I think this is what the judge has done, and he said, look, I give you 90 days, which has been contested that he ought not to have gone that far. For 90 days is too long. But he limited it that, look, you can come back today, tomorrow, to say this order ought not to have been made because I have nothing to do with terrorism, and then the matter can be contested.
But some have described this, as, especially the manner in which this happened, as suppression. Because the truth be told, some instances that have come up as far as this is concerned would be that there are quite a number of anomalies that have happened in the country, from funding terrorism to lootings, and we've not really had cases like this where outright freezing has been done or court order has been generated to freeze those accounts. So people have concluded that this is the government trying to suppress voices. Where do you stand on that?
I don't think so. I think, I do not know the intelligence the government has, but for the government to come out and allege terrorism, whether it's sustainable or not is another thing. They must have something. For example, it's been insinuated or suggested in some quarters that the NSAS has some coloration of some foreign interest trying to destabilize Nigeria, and then according to them, it also has the coloration of some disgruntled politicians trying to use these people to unsettle the political equation. And then, for example, Boko Haram has been alleged that one of the European countries, from Francophone country, is terribly funding the Boko Haram.
Now, it would seem that the government is trying to prevent a repeat of the escalation. I wouldn't want to say the protests because that's allowed by law. Do you think the government is going about it the right way?
I doubt it. I doubt it. And I think it's like treating the effect and then you're ignoring the causes. What led to this? Why are we where we are? A good starting point is we look what led to the protest, what led to the agitation. I think the only way to prevent it is to tackle the problem from the source. Arraigning people before the court, yes, that may discourage people, but that will not kill the underlying problem, which is the basic thing. And protest has been said, even by the UN, that is lawful, so long as it's not violent. Once it is peaceful, it's allowed. And once you suppress it, then you're attracting attention to your country.
Do you see consequences from the government's actions?
My fear is, if it's not well treated, it may trigger something much more dastardly than the recent answers that we witnessed. And I think the best thing is for the government to really sit down, look at all these problems, and come up with do a kind of holistic review of why are they saying all this. Is it true the police are not well paid? Is it true all the allegations against SARS? Is it true we have a whole number of unemployed, employable youths who have been to universities, who have graduated, no work to do, nothing, they are just there? So when you have a society like that, you need to sit down. Even if it means to convert something like the NYC scheme to a 3-year paramilitary program, a nation that is not really secured, then you have youths, able-bodied youths, they are not employed. Why don't you put them into paramilitary use? I think these are some of the ideas the government will have to look at and stop just looking at the effect, immediate effect, ignoring the causes.
Let's move on. There's a lawsuit by one Kenechukwu Okeke against 50 Nigerians who were part of the NSAS protests. I don't know if you've seen that.
I've read about it.
You've read about it. But from a legal standpoint, what do you make of it?
Well, I think it's like a criminal complaint against some individuals, and then is allowed under the law for a private person to file a criminal complaint. Whether or not he can now sustain it is a different thing entirely. What the motives are is a different thing entirely.
I'm looking at the validity and the rationale behind that, because we clearly know that the NSAS protests had no leaders. At least that was what was emphasized throughout the process, that there were no leaders. So singling out 50 people to blame, as he claims that his property was damaged. If you were his lawyer, how would you advise him to go about that? Would you advise him to sue those 50, or who would you hold responsible for the damage?
I will advise him to go before the panel set up by the
judicial panel
set up by the various state governments, and not to go after some of these individuals who probably might not be outside that day. For example, Adeleke. Adeleke was negotiating on their behalf. He came to meet the IG. So in what way will such a very lovely young man be tagged with being in charge or having destroyed property? I mean, the young Adeleke.
That's the singer.
The singer.
The singer, Davido, okay.
Davido. He interfaces with the National Assembly, he interfaces with the IG of the police. So how will you say such an individual from such a pedigree is now the one destroying properties? How? I cannot understand.
I thank you so much for finding time to come speak with us on this. Thank you for your time. Ahmed Raji, Senior Advocate of Nigeria.
Thank you.
Well, we'll take a quick break now, and when we come back, you'll meet my next guest. Stay with us. Welcome back to Hard Copy. My next guest is a campaigner for good governance and a politician, architect Ezekiel Inya-Etok. Mr. Ezekiel Inya-Etok, welcome to Hard Copy.
It's a pleasure to be on Hard Copy again.
Yes. I just start with the last question I asked my last guest. I just had a conversation with the senior advocate of Nigeria, Ahmed Raji, on some of the happenings and how government has responded to it.
The government is doing what they understand best to do, but it's unfortunate. They have absolutely no understanding, no clue as to what NSAS protest is all about. Absolutely none. I'll tell you two reasons, two essence or three of the NSAS protest. Number one, just a young guy graduated from Covenant University not too long ago. My son's classmate, I would say. He's been rated, I think, the top on the Forbes 30 top 30. What's he doing? He's into IT. The IT is a new normal, is a new generation, is a way going forward. The IT has become more than the oil for the youth. For you to be able to do certain programming, you can sell your product for as much as 20 to 50 to 100 to 200 million dollars. IT is a new normal. Now we have people who have mundane ideas, archaic, anachronistic, things old-fashioned that really don't understand what's going on. As a result, the police, once they see you with a laptop, all that goes to their head is 419. And they don't realize that there's a bigger world out there. And the young people say, no, enough is enough. Don't truncate our future. That is part one of what the NSAS is all about. So when you say you ask for 5, we've given you 5, what else do you want? You have no idea. They're not asking for 5.
Some have described the actions of the CBN governor as dangerous for the country. Some say there will be consequences going forward because of his decision to describe the NSAS protesters as terrorists, and considering that he should be independent and shouldn't have been the one to, request that court order initially. Do you think that there will be consequences going forward?
Yeah, these are the micros, not the macro. Okay? What do I mean by that? Talking about the activities of the central bank governor, I mean, it is just a little part of the lack of understanding of what government is all about by this complete structure that we run today that we call governance. The central bank governor should be an independent person that faces the monetary policies of the state. The day we come to run government based on sound fundamental principles of the essence of governance, we will not be talking about central bank governor coming to project. Let me tell you this. I really want to be able to focus on the macro because I know so many people have run a lot of commentaries on this and that, okay, I want you to understand what the NSAS is all about. I want you to know that this is a movement not by riffraffs, by your own definition, or hoodlums. These are people who have seen that countries will not. Look at what happened in South Africa. Look at what happened in Ghana. Look at what's happening in America. People are saying, if you are not a Ghanaian, leave Ghana for us. If you are not from South Africa, leave South Africa. If you are not from an American, leave America. People are like, where are we going to? These young people are saying, we only have one country to go to, Nigeria. We got to fix Nigeria. NSAS was not brought about by hungry people who cannot find things. They were brought about by young professionals who are saying, look, the time has come for us to go back to our country and take our country and give us good governance. Once you understand that...
Here's something that I think should be paid close attention to. Where do we draw the line between foreign interference, which tries to dictate how government acts, thus infringing on our sovereignty, and actual influence for positive outcomes? Now, I ask this because of the petitions by Nigerians to international organizations and Western countries calling for sanctions against the Nigerian government and officials.
I'll tell you what it is. The young people are smart. The young people are forward-looking. The young people project. They are like the sons of Issachar that could discern the signs of the times. The young people are beating the old people at their game. They know that whatever you say here does not bother them because they've stashed away all our money outside this country. They know that the only thing that pinches them is when other countries say, we're going to stop you from coming. They wake up. The young people know, so they are waging their war from all sides. They are going to the international community and say, look, if you don't help and let people fix their countries, the problems will come back to you, so you better make sure that you help any effort for people to fix their countries. They see the young people.
Well, where do we draw the line so that it doesn't affect the sovereignty of the country?
You can't draw the line. We're in a global village. You are going to America every time asking for aid. You are going to China asking for loan. You are going everywhere asking, and then you now say they shouldn't come. You can't do that. If you want them not to come, then you stay away from them. You can't have your cake and eat it. It doesn't work that way. The world has become a global village. If there's a problem in Nigeria today, it's going to affect America. It's going to affect the whole West Coast. It's going to affect everywhere. So don't tell us don't interfere in our internal wranglings. There's nothing internal again. Secondly, do what is right and nobody will intervene. Do politics the right way. Have elections that are free, fair, credible, and nobody's going to interfere. But when you create problems at home, you create problems abroad, and nobody abroad is going to wait. They're going to preempt you.
Well, clearly there have been quite a number of reactions to the way government's handling the NSAS protests and the aftermath. We've seen arrests and we've seen accounts being frozen. And on one hand, the government says we're open to dialogue, we're open to change, we're trying to get people at the table so that we can have a conversation on the way forward. And on the other hand, protesters are being arrested. Do you see a sincerity from the government?
No, there's no sincerity from the government. There's fear from the government. And there's lack of tact from the government. I'll tell you, if I'm in your studio and my time is up, the least I could do, if I needed to say one more thing, is to appeal to you. But if I want to grandstand, you're going to cut me off. Now, government is not running government as what government should be. They fail to draw a line between government, governance, and politics. These two run on two different lanes. And when a thing like this happens, instead of them sitting back to say, exactly what are these people saying? What makes sense? What do we do? And if I were to be an advisor to the president, I'll tell him, sir, the young people want their space. Let's start the process of responsibility transfer. If we wait and we want to grandstand, these guys are going to push you out. They have the energy, they have the capacity, they have the resources, they have the tact, they have the strategy. You don't have. You're just reacting. So I think that what government should do is come clean. Number one, understand that our time is up. I'm 56, I just turned 56. 57 rather, not even that. I just turned 57. And if I'm a wise man, I should know that I should be on my way retiring. But at 70, you still want to be. Okay. At 57, I have a grandson. When will my son get to the seats? Not to talk of my grandson.
So sadly, we're out of time. And as I said, I wish we're having this conversation for longer and face to face. Thank you so much for finding time to come speak with us on Hard Copy.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Well, that's Hard Copy. Thanks for watching. Remember to catch this and past episodes, as well as our podcasts on channelstv.com. I'm Terry Ikumi. Goodbye.